Hi, I'm Ned Kelly. Today is Thursday, October 10th, 2013. Today we have our first meeting in just a few hours from now. First group meeting for Adventures in Spirituality. Actually, my group had a meeting last week, 1 week ago. An unofficial pre-meeting get-together, but that is because we are a special group. We are the Art Response Group. Please don't tell anybody that we did that. And this is my art response for Chapter 1. Chapter 1 of the book that we are all doing together, Handbook for the Spirit. And the first chapter is Awakening the Spirit. And there's a few great essays about the awakening, coming to realize that awareness, that first awareness of God. And a lot of the stories talk about people from their childhood, introduction to God and religion and how it developed over time. My childhood introduction to religion was pretty nil. I was raised fairly godlessly, in a good way, not taught that I was a certain religion, not told about I was going to go to hell or heaven based on whether I did wrong or right. I wasn't kept away from religion or God either. My mom was Unitarian, so that's fairly godless in that sense. And my dad was agnostic with atheist tendencies. I believe my first experience of awareness of God was 21 years ago when I was 21 years. So halfway through my life thus far was sort of my first really awakening in God. And I will tell you that story. It was 2 nights before my 21st birthday. It was also the night before I became a black belt in karate. I had been studying karate in my early teenage years and through high school and into college. And this was the night of my black belt test. It was in the Poconos in Pennsylvania at karate camp. And we were in a pavilion under the woods, out in the woods, under the stars, in between testings, and we never knew when people would come, black belts would come and take us and train us and exercise us and test us physically and cue us and quiz us mentally as well. So there was a real experience of being tired and endurance and opening up. I say us, it was a group of 13 of us, brown belts at the time. And really, a lot of it was an experience that Matthew Fox refers to. I'm going to read a little bit about in the book that he refers to as the via negativa, is that of darkness, of emptiness, of nothingness, of absence. Later he says, the darkness is also a kind of revelation of divinity, but it can't be put into words. Ultimately, it's silence. With that silence comes a union with God. So in many ways, this was that sort of emptiness, that emptying of all that I knew, all that I identified as far as ego. I didn't have my college friends around me. I wasn't president of the math club there. I was out in the woods, away from family, away from all of those normal roles. Even the status I had in karate class that I had really, as a teenager, clung to, and I can see why people have the need for religion through that structure and purpose. I didn't have that in organized religion in my adolescence, but I had that in karate. I had a belt, I had a place to stand in line, and orders and instruction and respect. And here I was, the senior brown belt in class, and even that was taken away from me because our group, our circle of 13 being tested, were really isolated from the rest of all the karate students at the time. We didn't have identification as far as clothing. We were wearing our funny white pajamas, so it really was a stripping away of ego in all that sense. And we were out in the woods in nature, and I remember distinctly being in between testings at one point, out in this sort of open pavilion, and hearing and listening to the birds. And I was suddenly no longer, at one point, listening to the birds. I was feeling the birds. I was being the birds and the lake and the trees and the woods and the entirety of it all. This was really a first experience in beingness in and of and as God, of allness, of the universe. And although we cannot put it into words specifically, we can sort of relate to it, we can revisit it and experience that in awareness in and out from time to time. So that was probably my first profound awareness of Godness. But I never had an association of God as this anthropomorphic God, a man or a being outside myself watching over me. So that's kind of an interesting, that's foreign to me. When Riane Eisler talks about that in her essay of the book, she mentions how we need to kind of return to the goddess concept. The word God is actually, for me, and this is just semantics, goddess is limiting. The word God has neither gender. It's neither male nor female. It's both male and female. It's allness. God, lowercase g, God is like saying the universe, and that to me is not like saying man nor woman. And I do understand and have met plenty of people who are turned off by the word God, in a large part because it connotes, it brings up these images of a male, of the authority over them. And I certainly want to respect that. I certainly understand that and don't want to limit in any way. So maybe that's why it's helpful often to instead use words like spirit, the universe, the allness, beingness, divine mind, consciousness, all of that. Well, I'm coming to a close here. I do want to close with something I found recently from earlier in my life. This is a book of poetry I've written. Not sure if you can see that there. Poems about God and love and stuff, which is kind of a joke because God is love and is stuff. So that's meant intentionally to be redundant because it's all God, it's all stuff, is love, is God. Anyway, so I found this recently, and I'm going to read a poem that has some images of God. Actually, the title is Images of God, and I honestly have not even read it for years. I know that it has some ideas I had about God early on in my awakening experience. So, and since this is the art response group, I'm going to share this poem that I wrote a long time ago, and it's embarrassing to read work from earlier on in your creative process, and especially when you don't even know what's really in it. Honest to God, I haven't even read this for years, so I'm not exactly sure what to expect. So I feel your compassion out there, whoever is watching this right now. I feel and know that non-judgment, that love, that acceptance. Should I go ahead and do it? Shall I? I will. And this is from April 2002, Images of God. God is a silver swirl. She dances in the void. We are the pieces of silver she picks from herself and flings about. She likes to watch these little drops of silver twirl. She listens to the infinite silver ringing. We feel separate, but she knows we are pure silver. God is the Father. He hangs out on a big fluffy cloud and watches over us. God has a long white beard and big strong hands. When we get off course, he uses his strong hands to throw down reminders like the law of cause and effect. God is a big fat Buddha. We are walking on his belly. When we trip and fall, it makes him giggle. He knows we can never truly be hurt. He does not get angry, even when we call him God, which he told us not to do. God is our mama. She does what mamas do. She cradles us in her arms and kisses us on the forehead. She rocks us gently to sleep with a sweet, perfect singing voice that only a mama has. God is a magical river. The river floats in the air. It passes through each of us from one heart to the next. Sometimes it's invisible, and sometimes it's glowing so we can see it. Sometimes it's a rushing flood, and sometimes it's a trickle, which might just dry up, but it never does. God is love. Namaste.